E-commerce expansion myths blasted. Successful cross-border expansion help. Listen to the show to hear how one UK company is helping e-commerce sellers successfully expand into Europe and double their profits. Hosted by Andy Hooper of Global E-commerce Experts.
So welcome to the next edition of our Brexit podcast. You'll all have heard, or hopefully have heard, our previous podcast on Brexit, the basics, and what's possible in the pipeline. Well, we're excited to bring you another instalment of that, where we've got Hamish back on with us. So welcome, Hamish.
Hi, Andy.
So welcome back. So we're actually videoing it on a conference this time rather than in person in London. So we're videoing this live, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go through, like we did last time on the last podcast, just talk through the basics and see where we're up to with Brexit. So before we do that, though, Hamish, why don't you just introduce yourself and OFX?
So once again, and for anyone who missed last time, my name's Hamish. I'm one of the senior currency strategists at OFX, and we are a publicly listed foreign exchange company. So we help sellers, businesses, consumers on their foreign currency requirements and their foreign currency plans. And it's pretty important, particularly in the face of Brexit at the moment.
Yeah, it's vital, absolutely crucial, especially for those that are going cross-border. So it's really, really crucial. So let's start with the basics. Just to cover this in a real 1 minute slot, what is Brexit and how we ended up here, just for those that might not have listened to the first one?
Well, Brexit is the process that seems to have been rumbling on for God knows how long, well, about 2 years now. So UK votes to leave the EU, and that was June or July 2016. And it's now getting to that crunch point. The UK, as things stand, is set to leave the EU come at the end of March the 29th, which is really not very far away. But the big problem is, and which has been a big problem for businesses, is that no one really knows, despite all these very clever people in Parliament and Brussels, no one really knows what sort of Brexit we're going to have, what the future relationship between the UK and the EU is going to look like, and where we're going to be come the start of April.
Yeah, perfect. So now, really, where were we last time we spoke in terms of Brexit? What had sort of happened and hadn't happened?
Well, Theresa May had this withdrawal agreement, this agreement with Brussels, with a number of key figures in Brussels. So Michel Barnier, Jean-Claude Juncker. She had this plan set out, to a very nice and arguably very attractive 2-year transition period whereby the UK would leave, in theory, at the end of March, but then have a 2-year period to implement things over up until the end of 2020. However, this deal was vastly and very, very convincingly rejected by Theresa May's Parliament by, I think it was 230 votes. And the key thing was the inclusion of this backstop agreement, whereby Northern Ireland could remain in essence within a customs union and within the European Union, something that a number of Tory backbenchers don't like at all. And so Theresa May lost that vote on her withdrawal agreement, that meaningful vote, and she's been trying ever since to tinker things.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, Andy, over the last couple of weeks, not a lot has changed. We're still sat here, about 20 days left, and there's not a lot of progress in terms of that withdrawal agreement, and any updates out of Europe is really quite stark.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it was 6 weeks since the last podcast. We're 22 days away, and we're no closer to getting a deal. Exactly.
There is a consensus amongst investors that the chances of a no-deal Brexit have dropped off, which I think is quite good and quite important for sellers and businesses. So, that's one good update at least.
Yeah. So with that in mind, then, what's the next steps? What are we waiting for next for either Theresa May, the government, or the EU?
So Theresa May is hoping to get some concessions from the EU. She's pretty much started from a blank slate almost, and then by the weekend or Sunday night latest, she sent her Attorney General Cox, I can't remember his first name. Sorry. Across to Brussels to try and get some amendments out of the EU. And then they're going to present basically withdrawal agreement Mark III to Parliament next week, and then March the 12th, which is next Tuesday, I believe, there'll be a big vote on the agreement. Once again, the meaningful vote. What happens remains to be seen, though.
Okay, so what is that vote actually on next Tuesday?
So it's a vote on whether to approve Theresa May's deal. But what you have to bear in mind is that the first time around she lost by 230 votes, which was pretty outstanding. Really, it was the largest defeat in decades. So what Theresa May has to do is that she has to basically swing 115 MPs back her way. It's very, very difficult. It's not impossible. She could bring across a couple of Labour MPs with this big Brexit fund, classic pork barrel politics. She could bring over the ERG, which is about 10 MPs. She could bring the DUP, and so things do begin to stack up. But she has to swing 115 votes to have any chance of that passing, which might be a step too far.
Okay, so if that is a step too far, then what happens after that?
So that's Tuesday. The deal is rejected. Let's say on Tuesday she loses her vote on the withdrawal agreement. So another big defeat or another defeat for Theresa May. Roll into the 13th of March. There's then a vote on whether to avoid a no-deal Brexit. In all likelihood, this is going to get rejected. So. Or we're going to avoid this no-deal scenario. We're then in sort of a catch-22 whereby Parliament doesn't support Theresa May's deal, but they also don't support a no-deal Brexit. So next step is then March the 14th.
We're cascading down here, aren't we?
And this is how this is why some people are worried that we could actually stumble out of the EU by accident in a no deal. So because we run out of time. So next Thursday now, March the 14th, we could have another vote, a third vote in 3 days, whereby they vote on whether to have an extension or not. That extension could be 2 months, it could be 2 years, and this is where a number of the European research groups, so people like Jacob Rees-Mogg have been very, very influential in how Brexit's panned out recently. They're faced with a decision whether they accept Theresa May's original deal they voted on the 12th, or they risk an extension which could last 2 years or 2 months, and a lot can happen in that time. So it's at that point that we could go back to that with Theresa May's original withdrawal agreement.
And let's say that they say, yes, we want to go and get an extension to the deal. Could the EU say, no, it's the 29th of March you're going, or could they say, yes, we'll honour an extension?
In all likelihood, we think that they'll honour that extension, because a no deal's just as bad as it is for the UK as for Europe. At the end of the day, there'll be as many ferries or as few as Dover as Calais as well. So they'll try and avoid that no deal Brexit scenario. So they'll look for an extension, but it then gets very, very political, because some people want that extension to last 2 years. I know Emmanuel Macron's come out and said, we're not going to give you an extension if we don't know what your aim is for this. We need to see some outcome at the end of it. Yeah. Okay. So we're no further on than last time, but we have got some dates in the diary that we need to pay particular attention to, which is 12th, 13th and 14th of March. Certainly, yeah.
Okay, so now we've got some time frames. How's that going to affect pound sterling? How is that going to affect, people that are reliant on the currency here?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. So what we've seen over the last couple of days and last week almost is that the pound's been almost paralysed by all uncertainty. It is just above 130 against the US dollar, which is quite a significant level for many, and that's because when it rises above that level, the general consensus is that we're going to avoid that no-deal Brexit scenario. So we're in a good position that way, but if we see a short extension, let's say 2 months, then we could see the pound rally. If that extension is looking like it could be longer, though, 6 months, 9 months, maybe 2 years, the upside potential for the pound could be quite a bit greater. However, all of that upside potential is completely outweighed by what could happen if we do end up crashing out. And if we do end up crashing out on the 29th of March, leaving the EU overnight, then it'll be bad news for the pound.
Yeah, what's the sort of thoughts on that? Firstly, how likely is it? And secondly, what could we expect based on perhaps what you've been hearing?
So it's not too likely. So around about a 15% chance. A number of the banks are forecasting a 15% chance of a no-deal Brexit scenario. But if it does happen, because those chances are quite small, the downside risk for the pound could be quite big. So pound US dollar could drop below 120, and pound euros could definitely make a move back to 105. So perhaps it might not be a good time to be booking summer holidays and buying your travel money when it's almost parity between the pound and the euro.
Yeah, quite right. So now, how's that going to affect? So if you're an e-commerce seller, how's that based in the States? How's that going to affect you think?
Well, it's first and foremost, this uncertainty is not good for anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're a seller in the UK, whether you're a seller in the Far East or seller in the US. If you're a US business, if you're a US seller though, looking to sell some of your products in the UK, arguably you can get them. Your exports are going to be cheaper. It comes back to what Donald Trump says about a weak US dollar, or in this case a weak pound. If the strength of your currency does affect the attractiveness of your products abroad. So we saw after the Brexit vote, and the pound did drop in value quite significantly, that immediately UK exporters, so UK people selling their businesses to Europe, suddenly found that their products were much more competitive, and we could see a similar thing for some of your clients and some US sellers as well.
Yeah, so it could be good news in some ways, and that could be outweighed by the negative. We just don't know. So
yeah,
so in a sort of a summary, then, we're sort of key things. There's some dates, you think?
Yeah. So obviously the big one. The big one would be the March 29th date, which is the Brexit date. But then more immediately, the 12th, 13th, 14th of March, very, very big dates as well. Watch out for how the currency markets react. The currency market is the most liquid market in the world, and it's the best barometer of Brexit sentiment. So if the pound is performing very, very badly, there's not a lot of confidence in Parliament and in Brussels.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, I think that probably answers a huge amount of the questions that we probably need to answer for now. I think we're going to have some more questions, perhaps come the 14th of March or the 29th of March, which we'll look to do another podcast when we've perhaps got a bit more clearer pathway. But if, Hamish, people want to get hold of you and ask you some specific questions, how can they do that?
Yeah, definitely get in touch. Look at the website, follow us on Twitter, or email us at corporatelondon@ofx.com. ofx.com's our URL as well, so get in touch. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding foreign currency and how businesses could be affected. It could be affected over the next couple of weeks. Like I said, it's very, very uncertain at the moment. A lot of volatility, so it's big questions still to be answered.
Yeah, quite right. Well, I want to just reach out and say thank you very much for all your time and your thoughts on this Brexit matter. I'm sure we're going to speak again, because it's going to rumble on for a while, I think.
Definitely. Andy, thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.